Alpha males, reach down, grab a hold, gird your loins. For this reloaded episode of Alpha Male Podcast, recently reached out to the patrons and asked them for some of their favorite, most impactful, standout, liked, remembered, made a difference, those kind of things. My hope is that you listening, if you're not a current patron, that you will join and become a patron. Help promote this message to make godly men strong and strong men godly. If you're not a patron, there's a lot of brand new content there. I added a new tier so you can sign up for $1. $1 to become a patron. Patreon content like video, Patreon only episodes, or my actual coordinates for actual bug out locations all over the country. Anyway, if you want to become a patron, check out the Patreon link in the show notes. Hello, and welcome to the Alpha Male Podcast. The podcast where we talk about what it means to be an alpha male, today's society, the right way. Strong, dominant, in control, made in the image and likeness of our Creator, God Almighty. We don't apologize for that. We don't apologize for walking out what we were created to be, strong, dominant men. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. Before we get into the bio, if you want to skip it, you can skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds. On most podcast apps I'm familiar with, that's about 7 clicks forward, get through the bio, and into today's topic, which is going to be the baby bug out bag. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world, war zones, and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT special response team in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. All right, men, talking about the baby bug out bag today. But before we do, remember that if you win a dozen gunfights, if you survive the craziest post-apocalyptic scenario, one day every knee shall bow. One day we'll face the judgment seat. So before getting your kit right, get your soul right, get your spirit right with your Creator, with your Maker, and with your Savior, Jesus Christ. That's more important. With that being said, we'll get into today's topic, the baby bug out bag. I speak from experience on this. I have adapted kind of a modular system. I've used this bag for years. It is a Maxpedition. I believe they still make this pack. It is the Jumbo Versa Pack, I believe is what it's called. It's about the size of a basketball. This goes into my big bug out bag, which sits behind the driver's seat of my Hummer. But the point of this bag is kind of line 2 gear, if you know, familiar with that term. Most people that are really strict about it would not consider it EDC. It is not my on-body carry most of the time. I don't carry it around on my shoulder. But let's say the wife and I are going out somewhere. I'll grab it and throw it in her car. If I'm going to the gym, goes to the gym with me. It's generally within sprinting distance anywhere that I am. So you can call it EDC or not EDC. We're just going to call it a baby bug out bag for today. But it's a modular system. If I had to with one fell swoop, God willing, I could grab it from riding shotgun where it normally stays and open the back door of my vehicle and grab my big bug out bag and just run with both of them until I had a chance to throw this one on that one. Or just leave it clipped in the front and with my big bag on the back. It's small enough to do that. With that, let's get into this. And again, this is a Maxpedition bag with the exception of breaking the buckle a few years ago, and I just replaced it with a bag of random tactical gear that I had a same size buckle. I put that on there. But it's been a pretty stout bag, so I feel confident in recommending it. But get whatever you want. Inside the main pouch, first and foremost, the most important part of physical kit you can have, the Bible. I have a Bible in there. Should come as no surprise. And behind that is a book of wild edibles for the area in which I live. I like to go out and forage, sometimes more productive than others, but I did that quite a bit this week. If you guys didn't listen to earlier episodes recently, my wife and I and our dog actually had to bug out. Like, not like a drill bug out, like we actually got what do they call it? A emergency evacuation order for where we lived. There was roadblocks. I had a hard time getting home. Even though I was only a few miles away. And by God's grace, we got everything out. And a big section of the area where we live, not the exact property where we stay, but a lot of that area burned in a giant fire in northern Arizona, which is still going on. So I was literally bugged out, like literally emergency evacuation order. Obviously, I had this bag because, again, like I said, it's pretty much stays shotgun in the vehicle. So I had this bag and my bigger bug out bag. So this is not theoretical. I use it all the time. Used to have a philosophy of, keep everything in your bug out bag pristine and don't use it and keep it in the wrapper. And then I found after quite some time that, if I'm being honest, I forgot a lot of the stuff that was in there and stuff that I could have used and needed that would get me out of a jam. I forgot that I even had. So now I use it quite a bit. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, when there's stuff that should be in here that's normally in here that I forgot to put back, I'll be real with you guys on that. Getting back to the contents of the main pouch, we have the Bible. We have the Book of Wild Edibles. We have, in my opinion, the finest combat handgun ever made, and this is going to get some flack from a lot of people. the Beretta 92. This particular model is a Wilson Combat Brigadier Beretta 92. Used a Beretta 92 in combat in Iraq. Carried one. This one is a little bit nicer, if I'm being honest. It is a Wilson Combat Edition. Again, I'd said finest combat handgun for combat, not CCW handgun, not competition handgun, but a combat handgun I can think of none finer than the Beretta 92. It is accurate, it is reliable, it is, like most Italian things, attractive and refined while being rugged. Um, I should mention that I am Italian. Anyway, with that, 2 spare magazines, and one is in a Taco magazine pouch, and mostly because I can clip that on my belt, and it also serves my backup mag, and it keeps dirt and debris and stuff out of that magazine. There's another magazine in there, and I should mention that the Beretta 92 is in an M12 holster, or commonly also known, very similar to the Bianchi, I think, UM84. It's a great holster. Like I said, not the best competition holster, not a speed draw EDC holster, but it is a classic, robust military flap holster. It keeps the sight secure, it keeps the barrel clean, it keeps crap out of the gun, and you would have to beat this bag pretty hard to affect the gun when it's in that holster. And if I had to, I can just clip it on my belt and EDC it. I have done it before. It is a fantastic gun, it's a fantastic holster. That's my setup. I should mention that if you have a couple of handguns, I think this baby bug out bag is the place for your your best full-size fighting handgun. One that may be too big for you to carry EDC every day. But in general, bigger full-size handguns have easier ability to shoot, especially shoot accurately and quickly. With that being said, this is probably the place for that. Instead of leaving it in your safe at home, have it where it's going to be useful. Put it in your baby bug out bag. I'm a big fan of having the things that you might need on you. It doesn't do any good if it's at home in a safe, if you need it right now. And that gun stays in here. That gun may change from time to time, but it's been in there for quite a while. And continuing on in there, and this came in quite handy this week when I bugged out, it is my backup power source for my cell phone, for charging flashlights, for charging pretty much anything. This one's called Rav Power. I've had it for a while. It works. I've never used it so much before being able to recharge it that I've worn it out. I actually, if I'm being honest, learned a tough lesson this week, again, is to not let your cell phone get too low. I literally had to bug out. It was my day off. I was at the gym working out, and my phone was pretty low. And I was like, it's my day off. I'm working out. I'll charge it when I get back in the car or whatever. Anyway, I started getting emergency evacuation orders on my phone. And the wife called, and before I knew it, my phone was at 4%. I hopped in the car to make it home to get my wife, and lo and behold, my cell phone charger that plugs in the adapter would not work. So I'm glad that I had this thing. I'm just being real with you guys. I should have not let the phone get that low, but I did. And I plugged it in and charged it with that battery backup. And that battery backup has come in handy before. I usually have a universal charger with a bunch of different adapters, but this is one of the places where I used it and I forgot to put it back clipped onto my bag, so it's not in here, and it should be. There's also a little hexamine stove in here. It's like a little metal folding stove. When I say stove, I mean it literally, smaller than the palm of my hand, or thinner than the palm of my hand, maybe a little bit smaller than my hand fully open. But it's a small little stove with a bunch of hexamine in it for cooking, for things like that. Mostly have that in there for the winter time. It's getting a little bit warmer, but there are times here in northern Arizona where it gets ridiculously cold and windy and wet, and I would not want to be without that thing if I had just this bag. So it's a little hexamine stove for a lot of things, boiling water, cooking, starting a bigger fire. It's got quite a bit of hexamine in there. Anyway, that is in the main pouch. Moving on to the top, this is like the top flap. I keep on there a headlamp, just a cheap Walmart headlamp. It's on there so that I can see the contents in the bag. It's also on there if I need to grab it and have a headlamp. It's easy to find. because if it's dark and I need a headlamp, I probably don't want to go searching around for it. The top compartment looks like it was made for sunglasses, but I don't have sunglasses in there. What I do have is banana boat sunblock. I have 2 tubes of antibiotic ointment. Comes in handy quite a bit. I have a set of gloves. I have a pretty much entire spool minus a little bit that I've used of micro cord, which if you don't know is great. It's like 550 cord but smaller. I have a roll of athletic tape. Comes in handy for a lot of things. I use it quite a bit. I used it today actually. One of the great things it's used for is for when you're hiking and you get a hot spot or you start to get tender on your feet. Put that tape on there first to prevent blisters and bloody, nasty feet. May not sound super cool, but it happens. On the top of that pouch is a morale patch with one of my favorite Bible verses. It says, "He that has no sword, let him sell his cloak and buy one." Wrapped around that is some Spectra, which is more commonly known as spider wire, but it's super strong, and behind that there is a needle. And I forgot that behind there is also a fish hook. So I just checked that out. So I could use that for fishing or for sewing up this bag or my pants or a kit or anything like that. Behind the main compartment, there's a little flat compartment. There should be a mat back there, but I'm just being real, there isn't one. What there is an SOL emergency survival blanket and one of those small cheap ponchos, both of which could be shelter. There is also a brand new clean unused cleaning brush for firearms, but I would also use it as a toothbrush if I needed to, and a little tiny single serving of CLP. And also back there is one of those little net gaiters. I like these quite a bit, 100% polyester net gaiters. They're good for a lot of things. They're good, especially this one that's still in the package. It's clean. They're good for if you had to bandages. I use them all the time in shooting. They're good to stop your face from getting sunburnt if you don't want to cover it with a bunch of sunblock. They're good for the back of your neck. They're good for when it's super hot to dip in water and keep you cool. They are very good for keeping your neck warm if it's super cold and windy. So they're handy for a lot of things. This one is in Rhodesian camo because if you're going to bug out, you might as well look cool. I also often have in here a pair of yellow aviators. That's one of my rules for bugging out. You got to have yellow aviators if you're going to bug out. Let's be real. I had them when I bugged out this week. They're actually usually in this bag, but I'm looking at them right in front of me because I took them off when I started this podcast, but they should be in the bag. And you're pretty cool if you bug out with yellow aviators. You're even cooler if you bug out with yellow aviators and Rhodesian camo. Now, if you can bug out with yellow aviators, Rhodesian camo, and a Rhodesian Ridgeback dog with Rhodesian camo, because he also has one of these neck gaiters, I don't know if you could actually get any cooler. But anyway, moving on from that pouch, that's what's in that pouch. And then let us see here. Front pouch, top pouch. In front of that sunglasses pouch in the front, there's another small slim pouch, and there is some regular aviators because sometimes it's too bright for the yellow aviators. Also in there is a packet of fish hooks, small fish hooks, because you can catch a big fish on a small hook, but it's a lot harder to catch a small fish on a big hook. Consider that a tactical tip, one of many of today. Also in there is a couple of bug wipes for like bug repellent, and then a couple of bug bracelets. If you don't know about those, you usually find them, at least I find them at Walmart for $1. That was pre-inflation. Who knows what they cost now? But little bug bracelets or anklets, you can put them around your pants so that bugs don't crawl up in there and give you Lyme disease or whatever, or put them on your wrist or put them around your neck. They're citronella. I like the smell of them. My wife can't stand it, but I like them. I think they smell good. Probably should have used those this week when I bugged out because I went to the wilderness and I have quite a few bug bites on me. Let us see, is there anything else in that pouch? One of my old Army name tapes is on the outside of that bag. In case I get amnesia, I can know my name. And let's see here. Moving on to the front of the bag, there is a couple of, it's like one pouch with dividers with one zip up. In there is a good Landsat compass, much like the Boy Scout compass. I like it a lot. I have used it. It works. Also in there is a backup belt. Like I said, I use this kit. This is a good backup belt. It is the Marine Corps issue uniform belt. It is a black version. I am not a black belt in Marine Corps McMap. I don't want to give that impression, but it's a black one. I like just a spare belt that I had. It's a good backup EDC belt if I forget my belt or something happens to my belt, or if I have to use my belt as a tourniquet, which I actually have had to do before. I have a spare or a spare stand-in tourniquet. It's not as good as a full-fledged tourniquet, but I know from experience they do work. And I hope you guys never have to destroy your femoral artery and find that out the hard way. Also in there is 2 bottles of water purification tablets, the iodine tablets or whatever other chemicals they have in there. I also have used those before. They do work well if for making your water taste a little bit funky, but they are good. They are good for cleaning up dirty water. Again, I'll be real. I usually have a Sawyer Mini in here. I literally bugged out to the wilderness this week, and I went hiking quite a bit, and I put that in my pocket, and I used it quite a bit to drink with out of streams, bathe in the stream, and drank out of the stream. And I really like the Sawyer Mini. I moved away from the Life Straw to the Sawyer Mini. It usually is in here, but again, I'm going to be real. I used it, and I forgot to put it back. But at least I have some redundancy in the purification tablets. Also, on a little key lanyard in there, I have a whistle. I also have one of those military can openers. I forget the designation. And I have some gold flipped on there and an old gold ring, just in case I had to barter or something like that. In the front pouch, I have 2 things of cordage. I have the kite string on the little handle. I have used this before in real life for making bird snares. It works really well. It's some of my favorite stuff for making bird snares. Also small enough and strong enough for fishing line, and just good, cheap cordage. If I literally had to make a shelter, it's good, it's cheap, and I have got probably several hundred feet on this little teeny tiny handle that I could make shelter with if I had to. Also in here, much more expensive and much better quality is Spectra. If you're in the fishing community, you probably know about spider wire and Spectra. They tout it as being stronger than steel, obviously much lighter than steel, very thin, very strong. It's good for sewing up kit. It is good for fishing. It is good for snaring. It is good for lots of things. I have pretty much a full spool of both those, minus whatever I've used. Am I forgetting anything in these pouches? I don't believe so. Oh, yes, I am. Actual metal snare wire. That is good for a lot of things. Fixing stuff that breaks on your car. Things that have high heat. Like suspending meat over a fire. It can be good for lots of things. I think snaring, and this is from a professional hunter and guide, and I have been a professional trapper, but that is not an easy skill, and if you think you're just going to bug out with some snare wire and feed yourself, I would encourage you to actually try it first. But moving on from that pouch, on the outside of that strap, I have some extra duct tape wrap, and that extra duct tape is good for lots of things. I shouldn't have to tell you all the uses for duct tape. And an extra EDC flashlight / tactical light. It is one of the rechargeable stream lights, USB rechargeable, which if I had remembered my universal charging cable, it would be able to be recharged with the battery bank that I have in the main pouch. Moving on to the side pouch, in there I have clipped one of my old LAPD ticket writing lights from my LAPD days, and I just tested it today and realized that it's dead, so I have to replace the battery, which kind of sucks. But that's just a small lumen light for doing work at night when I don't want a giant tactical light. Also very important on the top of that pouch is a pair of socks, a fresh pair of socks. Consider this one of the most important tactical tips. If you're ever hiking long distance, before you feel like you need to, every time you stop, change your socks. Hang the socks you've been wearing on the outside of your bag or on your belt or something where they can dry out. Put on your dry socks and repeat, because bloody, nasty feet are no fun, and infected feet can be life-threatening. So that is very important. Probably not talked about enough in the preparedness space. Also in there is a metal container for eating, for boiling water, for whatever, and another thing of iodine tablets. So I guess that's 3 containers of iodine tablets. Probably quite a bit more than I need. You can also use those for cleaning wounds and things like that. And the socks, like I said, very important. And there's a little bag that I keep in here, and it's mostly fire starting kit. I have tinder in there. I have some more hexamine tablets. I have a big chunk of what looks like 550 cord, but it's actually fire cord. If you don't know about this stuff, It's 550 cord plus fire starter inside of it. If you're going to have it, you might as well have the fire cord. It's expensive, so I use it day to day for tying up a bunch of stuff, but for your actual bug out bag, I wouldn't mind spending a little bit of extra money. Also, there's just a regular lighter in there because pretty easy way to start a fire. Now I'm going through. Yes, it still works. Got duct tape wrapped around it. And I have in here one of the beefiest um, ferro rods slash magnesium rods I've ever seen. I got it on Etsy. I've used it. It's been used. It works. I tested it. I honestly forget who makes it. I'd like to give them a shout out, but I don't remember. But it's not like your little chintzy ones that you normally see. It's a big, beefy ferro rod. I would imagine I could use this every day for years and it would still have plenty on it to start fires. Anyway, that goes in my little fire starter bag, which goes in there. Also in this pouch, and it may seem like a lot of stuff, but this is literally the pouch for a water bottle that doesn't have a water bottle in it. In that pouch also is a tack bivy. It's a little emergency bivy sack. Think of it like a sleeping bag slash tent. When I say little, I mean that I can grab it and wrap my hand around it. It's tiny. And it's clipped to the bag in case it falls out of the pouch, which it has before. It stays clipped on there, doesn't go away. We move to the far side of the bag. Inside that pouch is, very importantly, a multi-tool. So the multi-tool in here is a Leatherman. Mine is a Leatherman Leap. You may laugh thinking that's for kids, but I really like the Leatherman Leap. It's brightly colored, which comes in handy when I'm working outside and I set it down. Also, one of the things I really like about this, as opposed to a lot of other multi-tools, is it locks, like the blade locks. And if you've ever had a knife fold over on your fingers and needed stitches, which I have, you'll really appreciate the importance of a locking blade. And this locks, the saw locks, it's got a few different things. Again, that's the Leatherman Leap. I'm not saying it's the best multi-tool. I'm saying it's what I have. It's brightly colored and it locks. My two top criteria. Stays in a little pouch. Also in that pouch is going to be a surgical scalpel, still sealed and in the package. Shouldn't have to tell you what that's for. And a pistol cleaning rod also lives in there. And the other side pouch, I have a backup EDC knife. And this is the Buck 110 Slim. This one has a little bit of sentimental value, but not overly expensive. But it's my number one recommendation for somebody getting into EDC or an EDC knife. The Buck 110 Slim. It is the modern iteration of the classic Buck 110. I use it as a professional hunter. If this is all I had to take care of skinning and gutting a buffalo, I wouldn't feel bad about it. I use it a lot as a professional hunter. I would like to have an entire kit with a saw, and if I'm being honest, a sawzall and power tools to deal with an elk or a buffalo. But if I had to do it with a Buck 110 Slim, I certainly wouldn't be sad about it. It works. And it's also in there as a backup. Just like sometimes we forget our cell phones, sometimes, if I'm being honest, I forget my EDC knife. And that will go in my pocket as a very good stand-in EDC knife. Also in there is another lensatic compass. It's brand new. It looks quite a bit better than the other one, but I trust the other one because I've used it more, so I'd probably go with that one. This is a secondary. There is some blue thread in here for making tassels on the corner of my garments. There is a Hank of 550 cord, I'm not sure how long, wrapped with bright orange micro cord. So some extra cordage in there. And a sewing kit, which I also used this week when I bent over to wash in a stream or drink out of a stream or something in a stream. I don't remember, but I remember ripping the front of my pants open and sewing it up with that kit. Any good military man will tell you that good sewing kit should be part of your kit, I think. Also in there is a monocular. I actually used this quite a bit this week. It came in handy. I had some really nice binoculars, but I forgot to take them, and I had this. And it came in handy. Little tiny 10x monocular. Fits all in that little tiny pouch. What have I not gotten to yet? Let's see here. Got that, got the front pouch. Alright guys, I think we're coming to a close on the outside of the pack. I have, very importantly, this is the Bushnell Backtrack, and this is a GPS. It's not like traditional big orienteering GPS. I liken it, it's smaller than a very, very small cell phone. It's a little tiny circle, like a hockey puck, but much smaller and lighter. Clip it on your belt. It goes in your pocket. If you remember to use it, it works fantastic. I go in the wilderness quite a bit. If I'm being honest, I have been lost more than once. If I remember to turn that on and set my starting spot, it's called the backtrack, because it will get back to wherever you started. So if you mark your vehicle or your tent or a waypoint, it will get you back to that spot, as long as you can get satellite service, which is most places, if you remember it. If you were last turning it on in Las Vegas, Nevada, and you are now in Arizona and forgot to turn it on before your trip, doesn't do a lot of good. It's also a backup compass, but if you remember to use it, it's quite handy. Clipped on the outside of the pack, I have another piece of 550 cord with a ferro rod clipped on the outside. And then also have a carabiner clipped on there and some more blue thread. And I have an Outdoor Edge survival bracelet. I don't really wear survival bracelets. If you do, I'm not knocking you, but I generally have it for if I just want a quick orienteering, reconnoitering mission. Not mission, but just going out in the woods quickly. I'll just take it and clip it onto my belt. It's got extra 550 cord. This one has an extra little tiny blade if I don't want to destroy my EDC knife on something trivial. It's got a whistle. It's got a compass. And it's a little EDC bracelet. You clip it on your kit, and it's just some extra. I do use that when I do go out in the woods. And then clipped on the main strap is a U.S. Marine Corps K-bar. And I have this because a K-bar is a good, useful knife. I was issued a K-bar in the Marine Corps, carried a K-bar in the Marine Corps. There's a lot of good knives that would fit as a big knife on this little baby EDC pack. But it's on here as much for symbolism as for practicality. I am made in the image of God. Exodus 15, the Lord is a man of war. And I should remember that I am a man of war. I am made in his image. I have been a soldier. I have been a Marine. I consider myself part of a well-regulated militia. And that is on there as much for symbolism as it is for practicality. But it is a good practical knife. Anyway, that's pretty much the overview of the pack. Again, this is all about the size of a basketball. So it's not a giant pack. It's a baby bug-out bag. I'll be honest, I should have some other stuff in here, mainly the Mini Sawyer and a couple of protein bars, but I actually used those and I didn't put them back. So, talking about the K-bar, that brings me to my tactical tip. The tactical tip of the day. As I mentioned before, in one of the top containers, I carry a small little thing of triple antibiotic ointment. Those things are great. Now, they have many uses. They're flammable if you didn't know. But the tactical tip of the day on my K-bar and about to be on my Leatherman multi-tool because I saw a little bit of rust on there. You can put some of that. It's petroleum-based. It's petroleum-based goo, for a lack of a better word. But it's pretty much like Vaseline with antibiotics. But you can put that on your knife, on your whatever to stop it from rusting. Also, it's not toxic. You shouldn't eat a tube of it. But if a little bit got on your food, it wouldn't be a big deal. And then, it's not like I'm worried about if I'm going up and taking care of centuries with my K-bar, which is super not realistic. But if I was doing that, I wouldn't be worried about somebody getting an infection with the blade. But let's be honest, how often do we cut ourselves with our own knives? So with that being said, good idea. If you're going to have something on your blade anyway to prohibit rust and things like that, why not a little bit of that triple antibiotic ointment? Good tactical tip of the day. With that, men, I want to say thanks for listening. Have a blessed day. If you think this content was worth anything that you want to contribute to, consider going to goodshepherdtraining.com. If you have it in your heart to give, and if not, don't feel guilty. But if you thought it was worth $1, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. There's a Patreon link on there if you want to be part of the inner circle. Way before I put this podcast out, I took pictures of all this stuff and gave it to the patrons. We also have, if you're interested, a little what I would call virtual tribal chat where we talk to each other. Facebook group chat. Lately, we've been talking about big bore battle rifles the last couple of days on there, at least especially today. We talk about all kinds of stuff. And it's not just me on there because I'm not the end all be all for all things. That's God. And I don't know everything. But we help each other. Iron sharpens iron, as the Bible says. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. If you want to be part of that inner tribe, that inner circle, that's for the patrons. Because they help support this podcast. It's not free to produce and put out. And they do a lot to help that. If you want to be part of that, again, Good Shepherd Training and Patreon. Again, if you have it in your heart to give, give. And if not, don't. And don't feel guilty. Thanks, men. Have a blessed day. Yeah, so if you want to support, if you want to be part of the tribe, also, if you just want some more visual things to look at, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. I don't mention it enough, but there's also gear links on there. If there's a cool couple of alpha male things on there as far as kit goes and gear goes, check that out at goodshepherdtraining.com. With that, I saved the best for last, the tactical verse of the day. Your tactical verse of the day. In keeping with preparedness, I recently, this week, when I was bugged out, reread at least a big chunk of the story of Joseph. If you're not familiar with that, you should go read it. It has a lot of good lessons, the spiritual ones as well as the practical preparedness ones. But it talks about Joseph. He was informed by God about 7 years of fatness and then 7 years of famine. And he told Pharaoh to store up food, store up the surplus in the 7 years of fatness for the 7 years of famine. And that's a good lesson. There's a lot of other lessons in there. At the end, the men were selling themselves into slavery for food, for grain. But that's not the passage that I wanted to read for you right now from the story of Joseph. In the beginning of that, and I forget which chapter, I'm going from memory here, when Joseph was sold as a slave, probably just the clothes on his back, maybe he was even naked, I don't know, but let's just say he had very little circumstantially from the outside as far as the world could see. Very little as far as resources. But it said the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. It said that not later on when he was visually super successful. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the things not yet seen. It says the Lord was with Joseph when he was sold as a slave by his own family. It said the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. If you read that story, he becomes second in command of all of Egypt. But that's not when it says it. It says it when he has very little. So whether you have a little or have a lot, the most important thing you can have is a relationship with God Almighty.